It's a Tuesday edition here on Zero Blog 30, and today we have 4 rounds in the magazine. Round number 1, a Navy sailor was machine gun goofing, and now he's probably going to spend a couple of years in the old clink. I mean, he's definitely going to. The things that he has, absolutely outrageous. I think this is a perfect example of slippery slope of goofing. I just do.
Goofin is a gateway activity.
When I first came across this article, I was like, how many machine guns we talking about? It's a banana, Michael. How much could it cost? $12? It's the same thing with these machine guns. How many could there have been? Well, there's 25 in his apartment, so that's a lot of machine guns.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a lot. Round number 2. We have another type of gun. This one's better than a machine gun. I was so excited. And I got to be honest, the group chat didn't give a fuck when I was talking about it yesterday. You better care today because it's a chicken gun. We got a gun that shoots chickens.
I'll tell you why, because I sent that story to you previously and no one cared. And so when you sent it, I said, I'm not going to care. I don't care about this. But now I do care.
I'd like to apologize to you, Kate, because earlier whenever you sent the chicken gun, I didn't care. Cons, any apology you'd like to give?
No, I mean, I was just a little incapacitated yesterday, so no excuse.
I thought you didn't get hungover. You sound hungover.
I don't know how I sound, but if that's how I sound, then so be it.
You sound fucked up.
You sound rough. You sound like, hey, actually, Gunny, I can't go out there today. I got some other shit going on, so if you want to take the Marines out, that's what we got today. Round number 3. World War I was obviously terrible to fight in, but there's one special trip that might have made your morale just go up just a little bit. Just a tiny little bit. And finally, round number 4, Kate interviews Ben Kesling, who's a Marine Corps vet and journalist with the Wall Street Journal, who followed the stories of 82nd Airborne's Bravo Company for more than a decade.
Yeah, he wrote this book called Bravo Company, and he follows what they did on their deployments over a decade ago, and then he he followed certain men from that company in the decades since then. A lot of these stories, a lot of these books you read tell like the story just of the war or just of what happened to someone after. But this follows the entire thread with really, I call them characters, but these are real people who are just absolutely fascinating. And I mean, I haven't read a book in a minute. I read it. It was really fucking good.
And I think
I'm really proud of you.
What's cool about stories like this, because we all love Band of Brothers and how they followed the stories of like Dick Winter throughout his entire life, really. They told stories about him in his 40s and 50s. When you have a modern day war, you kind of think like when we were there, who the fuck's going to care about us? Like in 40, 50 years. But in reality, people are going to care in 20 years about what these stories, and these are the type of stories that people are going to remember, like the human impact stories, following entire units, seeing what they go through and what they went through after. It's really a beautiful idea, and I'm glad that you got to sit down with him, Kate.
He tells it wonderfully, so very cool.
And all of that is brought to you today by WhistlePig. Today's episode of Zero Blog 30 is brought to you by our good friends at WhistlePig. You got Bonnie and Clyde, Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, Brady and Gronk, but the next legendary duo is from our friends at WhistlePig. They got the 100% rye and their new Piggyback 100% proof bourbon. They always are keeping it 100. WhistlePig matched their Piggyback 100% rye with their 100% proof bourbon. It's absolutely delicious. I've been knocking it out for months now. I mean, really for years. I've been a huge WhistlePig fan for a long, long time, and I'm glad they're finally getting some affordable options. Not really finally, they've had them for a while. They got the top-end shit, whether you're talking about their farm stock or they have the more affordable options in these Piggyback. Either way, if you're trying to get into whiskey, there's no better affordable option than the WhistlePig Piggyback. Or whether you like rye, which is a little bit more spicy, or bourbon, which is a little bit more on the sweet side. Either way, you can't go wrong by going to shop.whistlepig.com, and you can go to a local shop. Wherever you can get it, it's 100% for all for 100. Piggyback 100% rye and Piggyback 100 proof bourbon is 100% the good stuff. Get your bottles at shop.whistlepig.com or at a local store. Again, couldn't recommend it enough. It's delicious. Go get you some.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, that's it. We already have the ad.
I know, but...
Oh, yeah.
Kate has something else to add about WhistlePig. Go ahead.
I do. Phillies are in the World Series.
True.
Dancing on my own over here. I just went down to Philly. We won the first game, lost the second. What was I drinking during the first game?
WhistlePig, I would imagine.
WhistlePig.
It was WhistlePig, and I had the pig snout pourer on and Roan and
Uncle
Smitty
Ham.
and everybody. And I feel like Uncle Ham was good luck. So tonight, that was what was missing from game 2. Tonight, I'm watching at the office again, and I will have a little cup of WhistlePig, little glass, bar stool,
And we need
ZBT
to have
glass.
a little bit of counseling for Kate, too, because in her stories at the game, cigaretting, Kate. We're back in on the heaters. I didn't show McCartney because if I did, you'd be in big, big trouble. So I didn't let him know, but it happens again, Kate. My hands are tied.
I know. I was cigaretting again. I had a big part. Guys, fellas, I had myself a weekend.
I can tell because you're doing the up high angle selfie with your tongue kind of flat. That's how we know.
I looked at my phone afterwards when I went. I was like 20 of the same selfie exactly everywhere I went. Went to watch the Phillies in Philly. And then I went to the Eagles game yesterday where we crushed the Steelers, and I had the best time. I had such a great time.
Well, anyway. I'm glad. A fellow that's not having a good time is this Master of Arms, which they call him a Master of Arms. He is. That's true. Like, it fits here. It really does.
Yeah, it's very accurate.
This guy had more arms than an octopus.
True.
This guy had. I'll tell you what.
Sticky fingers, bud. They call this guy the Wet Bandit. No, probably the Sticky Bandit, actually.
A Navy sailor based in Virginia was convicted Monday of receiving, possessing, and selling multiple unregistered machine guns months after a search of his home uncovered a veritable arsenal of heavy weaponry. Master-at-Arms First Class Patrick Tate Adamiak.
So, Kate, let's go back to boot camp. What is a Master of Arms First Class? What rank is that?
If it's not Marine Corps, I just do not
like
care.
E what? Cons, any idea?
If I had to guess, E7.
I would say E8.
Close. E6.
Okay, E6. You're master. Okay. Anyways, this Master-at-Arms was arrested and indicted in April. Between October 2021 and April 2022, Tate, who was not a registered firearms dealer, sold unregistered parts and complete weapons to undercover agents with the ATF.
I feel like every single time you're going to sell a weapon online, 99% it's the ATF. Like, it seems like anytime somebody tries to sell one on Facebook, this is what happens.
Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
If their marketplace username is totally not ATF, they might be ATF.
Not a Fed.
Yeah, not a Fed. What's going on, teens? Anyone selling unregistered firearms?
Anybody got a Polish machine gun I can get my hands on?
Just for a friend. A subsequent search of Adamiak's home, I love that name, Adamiak, uncovered 25 unregistered machine guns, as well as 2 grenade launchers, 2 anti-tank missile launchers, and probably a whole bunch of other weird shit, according to the feds.
Now, listen, this story is weapons, right? We got 25 machine guns, rocket launchers, and all kinds of other shit. Nobody who's a Second Amendment guy is saying we should be able to have this. Everybody believes in a limited fucking Second Amendment. Everybody.
Well, there's a couple militia groups out
maybe
there.
Not everybody. 99% of people, yeah.
A bunch. I'll say this, too. You ever go over to somebody's apartment, like a friend of a friend of a friend, and they have a bunch of weapons in there, and you're like, what?
I used to love that.
Not typically.
Yeah, I used to love it. My friend Johnny, when I was in Quantico, he had like essentially an armory in his house, and I used to love going in there and just fucking with stuff. It was awesome.
What all did he have?
I mean, he had like legit AKs. He had brought back a bolt from Iraq where it made it like full auto. He had just a shit ton of. Basically, he was a single dude that had spent like 22 years in the Marine Corps, and he said every quarter he would go out and buy a new weapon, and he had been doing it for 20 years, so he had like 70 fucking 80 weapons in his house.
Jeez.
And who knows for what, but you know.
I mean, this guy is super stereotypical. He had all that stuff, 2 pit bulls in his house. We became friends because he wanted to learn how to train these pit bulls. And so we hung a tire. I can't believe I haven't told this. We hung a tire inside like his laundry room and attached it to the ceiling with a chain, like the kind of chains that if you're going to fuck in a swing, you have that chain in your ceiling where you put it in there into the actual beam. Well, the dog would jump up on this tire, grab the tire, and then just spin completely suspended, and he loved doing it. And I taught him how to be like a Shih Tzu dog. The dog was incredible, but he had that and weapons.
Jesus Christ. I was just talking about like going to a weed dealer's house in college and they have a couple samurai swords on the wall.
No.
Yeah.
I was not expecting you to do.
This guy's got
I gave it a little bit more of a Babadook kind of vibe.
You really did. I feel like you should alert the authorities.
How many bad tattoos did he have?
Oh, several. Yeah, you don't.
Yeah.
I don't think you don't last 20 years in the Marines without any kind of tattoos that you're just embarrassed of.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. That's why I got out. I said, if I stay in another year, I'm gonna.
Well, you
have
already
more than
had
one-
the tramp stamp.
the tramp stamp. That's what I'm saying. I was already a danger. I was a candidate for big trouble. Anyways, Tate, he's still an active duty sailor assigned to the USS John F. Kennedy. His service record shows he first enlisted in 2012 and was assigned to the aircraft carrier's pre-commissioning unit in February of 2020. Adamiak first began emailing a confidential source for the ATF in October of 2021 who asked about buying parts for a Thompson submachine gun. Over the next 6 months, Adamiak sold thousands of dollars worth of components to the confidential source and undercover ATF agents, communicating through an email address associated with Adamiak's company, Black Dog Arsenal. So this guy, like, he's not a registered firearms dealer, not registered to the weapons, but he feels so confident that he just has his own Black Dog Arsenal company.
Dude, he's so
Like, he has
confident.
his
The
own
very
company.
next line is he's provided his actual name and mailing address to handle these orders. Like, that's
Yeah.
If you're criming, you don't put your fucking actual name. Like, that's criming. What he already got caught earlier the year before. Like, how do you do
Yeah.
this a second time?
Yeah.
I don't
At
know.
the end of
Maybe-
October. Well, sorry. Go ahead, Con.
Yeah, I was just gonna say maybe he's a big believer in hiding in plain sight. You know, those people who just think like, oh, if I just do it, no one will think. No, you
Which
can't be
does
this
work
stupid.
sometimes.
Yeah, that's
does.
what I'm saying. Yeah.
Every now and then. At the end of October, he sold 5 receivers for Polish PPS 43 machine guns. In December, Adamiak made another sale, sending a receiver for a Russian RPD machine gun to the confidential informant. In March, he did it again, another Polish PPSH machine gun, and agreed to sell kits for a second machine gun as well as a Thompson machine gun kit to undercover agents. Adamiak was arrested on April 7th, 2022. A search of an address associated with Black Dog Arsenal turned up 5 IEDs, improvised explosive devices. The search of his home also uncovered several machine guns, documents, grenade launchers, and proceeds from illegal activities. Adamiak was ultimately charged with 5 counts of receiving, possessing, and selling unregistered firearms. He faces a maximum sentence of up to 10 years in prison for each count. So that's quite a bit of time. I'm just
That's a
picturing
long time.
I was talking about, like, a friend of a friend's like, oh, I gotta go, like, pick up whatever when you're in college. You go to this house, there's, like, a wall covered in samurai swords. This was University of Pittsburgh, okay? But I just picture, like, 23-year-old Kate, some guy's like, you want to come back for a nightcap? You go, and you're like, oh, yeah, sure, just a nightcap. And he's got Polish submachine guns all over his apartment.
I'm curious.
I mean, yeah, you're right, exactly right. Because I just looked it up. The rating of this weapon, it shoots 7.62 and it shoots 500 to 600 round at a cyclic rate. Not
Wow.
great.
I feel like I would have that Curb Your Enthusiasm face where I'm like,
Yeah.
I should probably go. But this is kind of exciting.
I'm
Pretty
curious,
bad, though.
though.
This is
It's
bad.
pretty
It's
bad.
actually bad.
I've never purchased a weapon. I have no basis for what is he selling these for. How much money is he making selling this stuff?
Oh, I would imagine a ton, man. Like, I mean, off the top of my head, I think, because you had that whenever, I don't know what wood costs whenever I'm going to build a new deck. But I
Right.
know if the guy that comes and he's telling me how much, if he's way over, I know that's way over. So if this
Okay.
guy came up and he was like, hey, I'm trying to sell some Polish machine guns. They're from World War II. Give me $3,500 and we'll call it good. I think that's probably about the going rate.
All right. I mean, that sounds right.
I'm sure the ATF is also tracking, like, besides them buying it, who else is buying it? And they're probably like, oh, we're on to something. Oh, it's another ATF agent. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I
Tom.
wonder if the
It's
ATF is
another-
actually, like the ATF, because they sell stuff too, like trying to find people who are buying it. I wonder if
that
ATF
backfires
people
sometimes, as
sell
we know.
and buy to the same people.
There's been a few huge news stories where all that shit's gotten fucked up big time and whatever. But I'm sure they're tracking non-ATF people who are buying this shit too. Like, why are they buying it? My guess would be like militia people, like military cosplay folks.
Yeah.
But who the fuck knows?
There's plenty of folks that'll do it, man. Like if you put a machine gun on Facebook Marketplace, people are snapping that thing up left and right. Boom, 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 boom. All right, let's move on to round number 2. It's Chicken Gun Time by David Rosa from Task and Purpose. What do we got, Kate?
Yes, Thanksgiving is just around the corner. By the way, I was reading that bird flu had went around big time again. They had to kill off over like 6 million turkeys or something like that. So our turkeys
What?
might be more expensive this year. Yeah, it's crazy.
No.
God damn
I-
it.
the last
yes,
thing we
I-
need.
Joe.
I know. Thanks a lot, Obama.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Biden.
But anyway, they're going to be more expensive, which is fine because I don't fucking like. I'll say it. I don't like turkey. Give me a
Really?
Give me a spaghetti on Thanksgiving. I prefer it, to be totally honest.
I think most people that say that haven't had a turkey that's cooked well.
Are you going to really talk about my mom like that?
Now, you have before. Not me saying Virginia, but I remember in confidence one night I was staying, I think it was in Chelsea, and you're like, my mom's turkey is ass.
That is, Mom. It's not true. It's not true, Virginia. I love you. Anyway, let's get back to David Rose's story here.
Right.
Thanksgiving is just around the corner, but before you sit down to enjoy a freshly cooked turkey, especially my mom's turkey, love you, Mom, picture this, a chicken carcass flying out of an 8-inch Navy gun more than 700 miles an hour into a glass canopy like ones on fighter jets.
Thinking about 7 inches, dude? Like, that's a fat gun. That's a fat barrel.
Yeah.
It's basically an artillery cannon that shoots chickens 700 miles an hour at the front of airplanes.
Yeah, it
windows
is.
in front of airplanes.
That's exactly what it is.
They have done this, as strange as it seems. It has played out more than 1,000 times at Arnold Air Force Base in Tennessee, home of the S-3 Bird Impact Range, better known as the chicken gun.
Now,
I swear to God, I will re-enlist right now.
Exactly.
If a recruiter can promise me S-3 Bird Impact.
Dude, you have those little placards that the recruiter give you: travel the world, education, steady pay, place to live, chicken gun. You throw out chicken gun. If I could be a 58-13 chicken gun handler, I would do that in a second.
And you know how much I love birds.
Right.
Like, I'm a birder. I love birds.
But just
I'm
wait.
Sorry.
They don't just shoot chickens out the chicken gun, kid. That's not the only thing.
Excellent. First fired 50 years ago this fall, the chicken gun at Arnold Air Force Base has been used to test glass canopies, windshields, and other materials for some of the most famous U.S. military aircraft. While it may seem ridiculous that the military launches dead chickens at its aircraft...
Hold on. Before you continue, I want to show...
Yeah.
We got to draw attention to this picture. Now, if you're listening, you can't see it. But it is like... It's just the cockpit of any F-18, 16, 15, whatever. It's the glass canopy that goes over the top of the pilot's head. And they show a picture. What it looks like a chicken version of a mosquito that has hit... A huge mosquito when you're traveling through the South in like the late fall when they're about to all die. But it's huge. It's the size of a 4-pound chicken that exploded over this canopy. It looks insane.
It's like, remember when Randy Johnson, the MLB player,
Yes,
hit that bird?
that's exactly
with the
what it
fast
looks
pitch,
like.
And the
Yeah.
bird exploded.
But
was
you're doing
just
it in
an
Mach 2.
Disintegrated.
explosion. But you're doing so it's like a Randy Johnson thing, but a little bit more intense. We do this because bird strikes are some of the most dangerous threat to even the military's most sophisticated flying machines.
Yeah, just
At
ask
best-
Sully.
Yep. That's why that plane went down in the Hudson. Bird strikes. Friendly reminder: who's that Hotmail model?
Fabio.
Fabio got hit by a.
How are
he
we
took
on the same page there? That's incredible.
Hear me out. He took a goose to the face on a roller coaster once.
Yes.
And it
That's
fucked
an
his
all-time
face.
great picture.
Fucked his face up. This happened. At best, bird strikes can cause thousands or millions of dollars worth of damage to planes, which must then sit on the sidelines and await repair. At worst, a bird strike can cause catastrophic damage that destroys the plane and kills its crew, as a flock of Canada geese did in '95 when it collided with an E-3 Sentry aircraft just after takeoff, killing all 24 crew members on board. So, like, it doesn't matter how expensive, how sophisticated, whatever. Like, all it takes is one fucking bird, and, like, horrible things can happen. As the E-3 accident proved, bird strikes on jet engines can be particularly dangerous. It's basically like throwing a rock into the engine. But bird strikes against an aircraft's glass canopy or windscreens can also kill or injure aircraft from impact. Even the decompression alone, if you're at a high enough altitude, just a break in the glass is all it takes. Force is calculated by mass and acceleration, so even a small bird can cause catastrophic damage at breakneck speeds of a jet aircraft. And, like, if you're in a jet, there's no getting out of the way.
Right.
You won't even see it.
I don't know why they don't have those little deer whistle things. Like, you put it on a truck if you live in the rural where, you know, you put it on the end of your, like, the hood, and then it makes that loud whistle. I wonder if they could throw some of those bad boys on an F-18.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea, chaps.
Yeah, but then it would eliminate the need for the chicken gun, which we don't want to see. We
No,
don't want
you
to
don't
see
want
that
that.
happen.
Not when you already got recruiting issues. You start taking away the chicken gun, what are we doing here?
Right, exactly.
And this has been a problem for a long time. Orville Wright, he hit one back in 1905, one of the Wright brothers. It became more pressing for the Air Force during Vietnam. There were these F-111 aardvarks, and the somebody's going to be like, it's actually F-111. Learn about the military sometime. Anyway,
you dumb bitch.
You dumb bitch. It's an F-111. It's an F-11 one. Anyways, the F-111 had been designed to fly very low to the ground at high speeds while carrying nuclear weapons behind enemy lines. That sounds like a great idea. But in Vietnam, the jet took on a strike role for hitting targets with unconventional weapons. The problem was that the high speed and low altitude meant we're hitting fucking birds.
That's exactly right.
We're hitting a lot of birds. Arnold Air Force Base wrote in its press release that we're hitting fucking birds, they said. They want to mitigate the damage caused by bird strikes, but simulating a bird hitting an aircraft at high speed is a tough challenge.
Let's skip down to the part where it actually gives you some of the information about this chicken gun, because we need to know.
Okay, I'm just going to say it. If you're driving, woman, man, whatever, it doesn't matter, you're about to get a boner.
Exactly right.
The chicken gun, 60-foot barrel, 10 cubic foot chamber. That's a lot of breast. At one end, that could be filled with pressurized air. The chicken carcass then gets loaded into a wooden case called a sabot, which was then loaded into a barrel. Separate the barrel from the pressurized air chamber with a thin plastic diaphragm. When it's time to launch the chicken, they rupture the diaphragm and boom, you got a fucking chicken bomb.
Do you guys know what this is? What the military version of this is?
Is this like a potato gun?
This is a potato gun. That's exactly what it is.
Me and my friends used to drive around in an old Dodge Caravan with a potato gun, and we would fire it at people's houses.
So technically you had a little mini chicken gun. Like you had like a roaster's chicken run.
Yeah, we
like
got
a little hint
for that. And I'm telling you, with a potato, you could fuck people's shit up.
With a pigeon, you could put a pigeon in a potato gun.
Let's rewind a second. You would shoot potatoes at people's houses?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So what you do is you can build them with PVC pipes. We had a math teacher who we went out to the football field, and it was a different class. I was in the dumb class. We didn't get to do this. But I had smart friends, and so they made their own. They went to Home Depot. You spray a little hairspray in the chamber. They
come tell Kate about it while she's licking the window and shit.
Yeah. You can come out for the fun part after class. I'm like, yeah, of course. Yeah. I was always the one who got to load the potato. Anyway, you jam the potato in the front, you use a little hairspray, you light it.
It's like a Delco Mortarman.
Pretty much. So it was real.
No, but I'm curious. Like, did you do damage to people's homes, and whose homes did you select to do this to? Was it strangers or like the girl in class who made fun of everybody?
We never did anything nefarious. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, I don't. That's why I'm asking.
Mean spirited, but like we'd find a crowded neighborhood with like the townhouses, and you just thump it. And who knows?
Mailboxes are way more fun because they're the target. You can take out a mailbox.
If you can open a mailbox and stand far away and try and get it in the mailbox, absolutely. And it just knocks the mailbox.
That's good old clean fun. Yeah,
it is. Anyway, it's not officer stuff. You wouldn't get it.
Yeah, you're right.
Basically, this is what.
That's essentially it. That's the chicken gun story. I love the chicken gun story. It's incredible.
I'd like to think that the origin of the chicken gun, though, was a couple folks just sitting around and got really hammered one night, and they were thinking about how do we test these windshields to make sure they're okay, and then like somebody really hammered was like, what if we just shoot chickens at them? And they figured it out from there.
Apparently they don't do it too much anymore, but if you go on YouTube, I love going down a YouTube rabbit hole. Go look up chicken gun on YouTube. There's one video from 2009. Just a little 4-pound bird carcass. The birds are already dead, by the way.
And this one, they're shooting it at F-35, so it's modern.
F-35, 552 miles an hour.
That's fast. And the thing I like about, because we know it's a potato gun, it's essentially like, do you remember Ernest P. Worrell? Do you guys remember Ernest? So Ernest had he had that big machine where him and the two scientist guys that were the cooks, and they would put anything in there and it would end up as like an omelet or whatever. Mm-hmm. This is essentially that in a chicken gun. You could take whatever you want to and put it in there. You could put a trout, you could put like a small kangaroo, a wallaby, you could put whatever you want to and shoot at 500 miles an hour at a plane. Sign me up.
Mm-hmm.
Should I donate my body to that?
What if Dolores got fucking shot a chicken gun right at her chest?
Rest in peace.
God.
Just saying. Anyway, something to think about. So
This video, I'm watching this video. This is pretty intense.
Yeah, it's pretty intense for sure. You guys can go check it out. All right, let's move on to round number 3. Another happy story. We got 3. Well, I guess the fella selling machine guns isn't happy.
No, it's not happy.
That's not a happy one.
And then you took us down a weird road with your illegal friend.
No, none of that was illegal. All of it was above board. It was. Well, minus the fucking bolt from the AK-47.
Yeah.
Besides that, it was fine. It's good.
Round 3 from the Military Times.
This show is sponsored by Betterhelp. Unfortunately, life doesn't come with a user manual, so when it's not working for you, it's normal to feel stuck. Navigating any of life's challenges can make you feel unsure, whether it's a career change, a new relationship, or just becoming a parent. Therapists are trained to help you figure out the cause of challenging emotions and learn productive coping skills, which makes therapy the closest thing to a guided tour of the complex engine called you. I've been using therapy for a long time. I've talked about how BetterHelp has helped me. My wife uses it. My kids use it. We use it for family therapy. It's absolutely incredible. All you have to do is go online and you're able to talk to a therapist. You're able to find one that matches you. Now, therapy before I found BetterHelp was difficult because you don't match up with everybody. Not every single therapist matches up with your personality. Here, if you don't find one right away, maybe the first one, second, third, whatever, they're going to find a therapist that matches you and the needs that you have. If you want to talk online, if you want to talk through text, if you want to talk through email or virtually, whatever you want to do, BetterHelp makes it easy for you. In order to get it, all you have to do, as the world's largest therapy service, BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists, available 100% online because it's affordable. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist. If things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist at any time. It couldn't be simpler. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searching for the right therapist, and that part's huge. Whenever I used to go in person, it's a 30-minute drive home, and then you have an hour. So really an hour or 50-minute long therapy session takes up 2.5 hours of your time. Most people don't have time for that. So learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/0. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/0. Okay.
For sailors
This
during
good.
World War I, sailors, World War I, ice cream was a delectable dessert.
Lieutenant Dan, ice cream, Lieutenant Dan.
And oh my God, I just realized this. Prohibition. So you're fucking serving your country and you can't even get a drink? Anyways, so ice cream became the thing aboard ships during Prohibition. In 1914, General Order Number 99 banned liquor aboard naval vessels, and it was shortly followed by the 18th Amendment making alcohol illegal across the entire U.S.
God, that must
As a
have
result,
been miserable at boot camp whenever they were like, General Order 98, and you're like, oh, fuck me. Like, we only had 12 to memorize, and that took forever. 99, screaming it out at boot camp? No thanks.
Yep. I got 99 problems, and General Order number 99 is one of them.
Exactly right.
WhistlePig, thanks. Anyways, as a result, ice cream. This is how they boosted morale. Even though Prohibition only lasted 6 years, sailors' love for ice cream extended well after. In 1942, the aircraft carrier USS Lexington sustained damage from a Japanese torpedo and began sinking. As sailors abandoned the ship, they grabbed containers of ice cream from the freezers and began chowing down.
Hey, Devil Dog, give me 3 fucking gallons of ice cream right damn now.
Yeah, survivors describe scooping ice cream into their helmets and licking them clean before lowering themselves into the Pacific. This was an essay by Matt Siegel in The Atlantic. The fierce dedication to frosted sugar dairy led the Navy to spend $1 million on an ice cream barge.
They were probably doing that, right, for last meal.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's probably why they were doing it.
This is what I'm going to do. And probably dark humor. Like, imagine you think
if
you're
I'm going down, I'm going down
with
with a belly full of vanilla ice cream.
But even too, just look over at your buddy and he's like, hey, this sucks, right? But then he's eating ice cream out of his Kevlar. I'll laugh. I'll be like, all right, at least I went laughing.
Look at fucking Johnson over there. He's got ice cream all down his chin. What a loser.
Any recruiters listening out there right now, if you can get me at the bird gun range or the ice cream barge, I'll do either one. I don't care.
You never have a bad day. If your job is you're working at the front desk at the ice cream barge, people love you when they pull in.
Oh my God, are you kidding?
Unless you start going slow.
So the Navy borrowed a barge from the Army and then retrofitted it as an at-sea ice cream factory and an ice cream parlor. The ship was stationed in the Western Pacific, carted ice cream around to ships smaller than destroyers that did not have their own ice cream. So destroyers had their own ice cream factories. Okay. But if it was any smaller and they couldn't, this little floating factory could make 10 gallons of ice cream in just 7 minutes.
That's fast.
Meaning one shift on barge could produce approximately 500 gallons of ice cream for the sailors. To accommodate the large amount of ice cream made, barge could hold 2,000 gallons at a time. It was not the most practical ship in the Navy. The concrete boat had no engine of its own and had to be pulled around by tugboats, especially during the wars going on. There's like torpedoes and submarines.
And this is World War I, like incredibly violent.
You're in a defenseless ice cream barge. You're like, well, this is... Anyway, the concrete boat pulled around by tugboats. It was a sailor favorite because it brought them a good reward for their service. Unfortunately, the unnamed ship no longer delivers ice cream to deployed sailors. That's a goddamn
Sleepy
shame.
Joe.
That's
Sleep. Thanks,
unbelievable.
Obama. The fate of the ice cream barge is unknown, but some may think it is in, like one of those, like the Philly Navy Yard has all those old ships or whatever. It's out there somewhere. I'm going to find it, refurbish it, and make it a thing that hipsters like, I think, if I could.
Makes sense now why the Navy's a bunch of fat bodies.
Oh, my God.
Question that I have for you guys. Okay. Is the ice cream barge the cutest thing the military's ever done since our inception?
The tiny little airplane we talked about last week was very cute.
Yeah, the Goblin. The little nuclear Goblin that flew into the net to go back. That one's pretty good. But I think ice cream, everybody fighting in World War I and World War II in the Pacific, and just everyone goes bananas over ice cream, that's just beautiful.
But it's true. I remember Camp Leatherneck, like on my first deployment, we were out in the boonies, but once every few months we would get to go back to Leatherneck for like real showers and I think it only happened once, but still, there was ice cream there. And it was like you couldn't wait to go to the chow hall and have a fucking cold. It just made you feel like you were not at home, but it was like, wow, I can't believe I'm in the middle of Afghanistan. I'm
touch
eating
of home.
Pecan. Yeah, it was like this little touch of home that and when this is fucked up, but when people would die, they would send out convoys of steak to us so we could barbecue. They would send morale meals, which then kind of ruined steak for a while. But
so actually,
they would send little bits of food, and then afterwards, everyone's barbecuing. Everybody's like given a little chance to relax and like hang out and but that stuff in the moment, it does matter. It does make a
it
difference.
absolutely does. Yeah. Absolutely does. Fun little tradition at West Point on graduation day. They forever, as long as I know, they serve waffles and ice cream for breakfast.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah,
I like that.
Very nice.
Yeah. All right, you got to eat. You can only eat one flavor of ice cream for the rest of your life. What are you getting?
For me, pralines and cream.
Okay.
What are you, 1,000 years old?
Yes. I mean, you guys know I love almond joys and paydays. I have fucking poor mouth.
Gross.
Okay.
Yeah, you do. That's above ground pool mouth. No.
Yeah.
Which I also
rum raisin. I like rum raisin.
Yeah. Chocolate peanut butter till I die. There's a place down the Jersey Shore in Seattle called Marita's that has this. They don't fuck around on the peanut butter. They don't skimp. You get the huge blocks of it. And every time as a kid, I would get like the 3 scoops, and my mom's like, Catherine, and I'm like, I'm gonna fucking do it. And
lay off me, I'm starving.
She would say that because every time I finished it sitting there, I'm like, oh, I'm about to have diarrhea. I would eat it till I had the diarrhea in my pants right there on the spot. And
worth it every time.
I still do it. Do it.
I would just go plain old chocolate. Just always delivers.
Come on.
No?
Nick, what about
Simple
you, pal?
like that.
Cookies and cream.
Okay. Yeah. I also like a good chunk of cookie dough every now and then too. A cookie dough ice cream is delicious.
So I'm joined now by somebody that I think Uncle Chaps would get along with very well. He's not on this interview. Divinity School, that's same as Uncle Chaps. Chaps, huge Jeopardy guy. You had a 2-day stint on there. And then Marine Corps infantry officer. If we took off the officer part, you and him would be thick as thieves. I'm joined by Wall Street Journal correspondent Ben Kesling. He has done stints in Washington and Iraq. He is Marine Corps infantry officer, like I said. And now his book, Bravo Company, an Afghanistan Deployment and Its Aftermath, is coming out November 1st. Am I correct?
That is correct. Yeah, November 1st.
Yes. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you. It's really nice to be here.
And not to brag even more on you, you're reporting live from a minivan right now as you're covering the race out in Wisconsin right now. So
so doing a little reporting, minivan front seat reporting.
Oh yeah,
Classic of the genre.
But yeah,
Yeah.
not so bad, you know.
So basically, you tell the story of Afghanistan. It's different for everyone, but you tell it through the eyes of one particular unit, a combat parachute infantry regiment in the 82nd Airborne Division. And over a decade ago, they go into Afghanistan. As I'm reading, you tell the story, you thread the story of multiple men in this unit, and they deploy
Right.
again and again and again. Each deployment is very different. The mission of each deployment shifts a little bit. And then you continue to tell the story of when they get back home and how all of this has affected them. What gave you the idea to even start doing this? Like, how did you
Yeah.
link up with these guys?
Right. Well, so I wrote about them in 2019 for a newspaper story for the Wall Street Journal. I met them because they were having a reunion 10 years after their deployment to Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
Because once they had, Bravo Company, they were from the 2508th Parachute Infantry Regiment. They were in the Arghandab, and their deployment was essentially no firefights. It was all
Mm-hmm.
IEDs and stepping on IEDs and looking for IEDs, and I just unimaginable anxiety of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They had about coming up on a 50% Purple Heart rate when they were there. But then the 10 years after they got back, there were some suicides, some suicidal ideations, some just the stuff that comes with coming
Yeah.
back home and taking off the uniform. And they met up for a reunion. It was a full unit reunion, and it was something that a veteran nonprofit and the VA sort of teamed up to do together to
Mm-hmm.
bring back everyone, regardless of whether they could afford it. One guy, he didn't even think he'd come because he didn't have any money. And he didn't want to not be able to buy somebody a beer. His dad gave him $100 folding money to bring with him.
Yep.
And they brought these guys back so that you could have this unit of men. It was all men at the time. It was
Mm-hmm.
2009. Who had congruent experience, right? So they knew exactly what each other had gone through. And then you had the VA as part of the pilot program. They were there to make sure things didn't devolve into just telling old jokes and talking about dumb old war stories. So they helped them unpack that. Anyway, that's how I met them. I met them because I wrote about that. And then I realized there was so much more to tell. And they had already been so welcoming to me and allowed me to talk to them, and were open about things. So I said, well, let's write about the entirety of the experience that an infantry unit goes through from the workup to the deployment to coming home, and all the good, the bad, the indifferent stuff that
Mm-hmm.
happens in between. That's sort of the impetus of the book Bravo Company.
That's fantastic. I'm the quarter of the way through so far. It's gonna be my
Nice.
train
All right.
read for the rest of the but already it's interesting too. You start off with where some of these guys are now, and then it kind of rewinds and you get to know who they are, why they are the way that they are, what they were like in the military, and how that's affected them now. I think especially for veterans, it's a good read. But one of the parts that struck me early on right away was this part right here. You wrote, people think it's combat trauma that causes PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder, getting blown up or injured. Yet Mac's god-awful experience didn't really do anything to him long-term, he says. Yet when he talks about Fred, his voice gets a faraway sound to it. He had an experience in his Humvee got blown up with his interpreter died, and he lost limbs. Or he got almost lost an eye and blown parts of his face.
Right.
And so, of course, that affected him the most basic physical level. His face looked different, kind of goes on a little bit. But it wasn't so much the recurring pain and trauma, the stuff that keeps Mac up at night. None of that is related to the explosion. That, the fear, the explosion, the things you personally experience, that all came later. The PTSD, the trauma came later with the loss of friends, the death of buddies.
Right.
It's kind of funny, he'll say, it's not the stuff that happened to him that keeps him up at night. It's the explosions that happened to other people that ended up fucking with him. And that resonated with me so deeply. I think you ask anyone in any of our units, any of the guys we serve with, like, I don't think about the times that were scary for me. And some it's different for everybody, but the times I think about are things that happened to my buddies. And you can't stop to spiral. What were their final moments like? Were they scared? Were they in pain? And why did that happen to them? And you start looking at the bigger picture and you start to feel disillusioned. And then the moral injury comes in, and it's like, this spiral that, especially after the Taliban took back over, I think hit so many of us like a punch in the gut.
Yeah.
And that really resonated with me. And part of that book is kind of telling the story of these guys dealing with what happened, not only what happened to them, but it's almost like they're more concerned with what happened to their buddies than things that happened to them.
Yeah. And I mean, how often is that, the case for, for you and for folks that you serve with? I mean, that is a common thread for folks. And I think that the section that you point out, and Mac was there, was Bravo Company's senior enlisted for that deployment. And I think that he does such a good job as he's such an interesting person. That's one of the things about writing a narrative nonfiction book, is like, you're dealing with all these interesting, fantastic people, but you're also dealing with these people as narrative devices, right? And Mac, as like a character in a book, does a fantastic job, because when he was such a hard ass, right?
Yeah.
Like nobody fucked with him, and he wouldn't take any crap from anybody. And like, we don't have time for you to bitch and moan. Like, we got to march. And when he gets out, he realizes, oh man, like, I went through some stuff, and the people around me went through some stuff, and I need to start wrestling with that and grappling with that. And what's so cool about him is, because he's got the bona fides. He's got, almost lost a lip, almost lost an eye, got blown up, got a Purple Heart, a sergeant major in the parachute infantry, and he opens the door for his fellow troops around him, the young guys, who maybe don't even have the same objective trauma exposure to work through their stuff, right? And one of the things that I came away with this book, and talking to all these men and their dependents, like their spouses and their parents, is you never know what is born in the heart of your fellow man, right? Like, and Kate, you said that the stuff that mess with you is stuff that happened to other people, not necessarily what happened to you. We never know what we're capable of shouldering, and what the person across from us is capable of shouldering, and what those experiences mean. I mean, you and I probably know plenty of infantrymen who went through some gnarly stuff, and it's like, oh man, doesn't faze me at all, right? But then when they get out, like, maybe they can't qualify for some job because they don't have credentials, and it wrecks them, right? And then vice versa. Some people do great on the outside, but when they think back to their combat experience, oh man, like, you never know how things are going to affect you, and how things are affecting everybody around you. And like, man, it's our job to be in this. We are our brother and our sister's keeper, right? Like, and and we need to understand that we don't know what other people are going through. They don't know what we're going through, but through, like, by just being generosity of spirit, we can get through these things together, right?
I think too, the idea of the pilot program of getting everybody back together again, it is true. You go through such, and it's, even within your unit, is such a unique experience to a unit closely attached to you. Your deployment experiences can be so wildly different. And it's a very small group that knows exactly what you went through. And one of the hardest things, like after I was getting out, and a long story short, I was married to a Marine. We ended up getting divorced. And part of the heartache of that was like, this is one of the only people who knows exactly what I went through. And now I'm going to lose that. And that's one of the final, I don't live near any of my battle buddies anymore. Like, that's the last connection I have to anybody who gets like what I actually experienced. I'm going to lose that. And that feeling, like, especially with these infantry guys and people in combat MOSs, when they get out and they're dispersed, it's like that shell of understanding is just completely cracked and gone for them. And they don't have that support.
And as you just said, it's like, it's a pretty incredible thing. Like, we have, we got flags waving everywhere. We've got 10% discounts on your next coffee or whatever. But like you said, like, you found that person that could understand you and that you could talk to, right? Because the veteran community it's a really, I mean, unless you've experienced it, right? Like, and every veteran who's listening to this, or anybody who's in uniform who's listening to this, they know this, right? But folks on the outside maybe don't see it. It's really, it's very difficult to have that team camaraderie, those strong arms around you as soon as you leave your unit, right? And one of the things I talk about in the book is I mean, as soon as a company comes back from deployment, right? What happens? You break it into pieces. Folks go to school, folks go to other units, new folks come in from boot camp. It's like a complete shift, right?
Yeah.
And then we're cut. Our moorings are cut, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're left just kind of set adrift. Now, when we're still in, we can build those communities and that through new units, right?
Mm-hmm.
But every time it's like when mom and dad put you in a new school in third grade, right? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't have any friends.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then when we're out, when you're out of uniform, like even when people go to the VA and do what society wants them to do if they're having some issues, what happens? They're treated as an individual, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like an
Yeah.
individual with an individual therapist and individual medications and whatever. And it's so hard to find that group that understands. And it's not going to come by just
Yeah.
sauntering down to the VFW. Like, who knows? Do those folks understand? Just because we're veterans doesn't mean we understand the same thing. And then you find like that one person who you can talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just it's so very difficult, right?
Yeah.
So difficult.
I just yesterday, I was doing a video at there. It's a VFW post that's rebuilding right now, but I met this Afghanistan veteran there who just got back. He was an engineer and he just got back for the first time in 10 years. It was the same thing. I don't know if it was the same group that did this gathering, but him and all his engineer buddies, and then including the Gold Star families from his unit, got to come and spend a
Right.
whole 4-day long weekend. Didn't matter if you didn't have the money, they were going to get you there. And he said of the last decade of things he's tried, it was the most impactful thing he's done. And to reconnect with his buddies again he's like, it's the best thing that we could have possibly done. Because it turns out he wasn't the only one who was struggling, and he wasn't the only one. And to meet with the Gold Star family, like let those families know, like, we still are thinking of you and remember you, because sometimes you want to reach out, but you feel torn to. But just hopefully we see more of that. Hopefully they put more of a focus on that of the unit cohesion.
Right. But I mean, it is something that is I don't know. It's like that's not the norm. Like
Right.
yeah, unit reunions have been happening since like the first the first warriors came back
Mm-hmm.
from battle, but like unit reunions a lot of times are, I don't know, a quarter of the folks show up.
Mm-hmm.
You meet at a bar, you get wasted, and you like talk about how funny the Chuck Norris joke was that was in the porta potty or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, that's important. But to have the ability to have a structured reunion and to have everybody brought back, and the guys that I cover from Bravo Company, their reunion, part of the thing that made it so that had such impact is that the leadership was there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So their company commander, who's now a lieutenant, he was picking up lieutenant colonel and going on. He was going on to command at 10th Mountain, and he came back for it. The senior sergeants all came back for it, and there was that sort of that's still that like organizational structure that was there, and everybody, I mean, organizational structure is something, once you're on the civilian world, you have to earn, right? It's not automatic like it is in the military, but they earned it during that time. That was so important.
Yeah. Is there any particular thread throughout the book, any particular soldier that really their story really stood out to you, that really stuck with you?
I mean, as I talked to I have a number of these guys who I kind of do long-term profiles on, because they all in their own way were just did such a great job of telling the story. But the guy I lead the book off with, his name is Sergeant Hargy, or Sergeant J, right?
The
Sergeant
beekeeper.
J, he's the beekeeper, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Sergeant J, I said, like I think the first line of the book is, a decade after losing his legs in Afghanistan, Alex Hargy still loses them because like his prosthetics will slip off every once in a while.
He's jumping in rivers with them. He's skydiving. He's like
doing all the things.
Yeah.
But so Sergeant J, he was just a great person to kick off the story with, and I think that a great person for folks reading it, because he lost his legs to an IED in Afghanistan, but that wasn't the worst part of it. That was just a bad day at the office, he says, The worst part of it was, man, the Taliban took away the army from him. Like he used to do all the fun. Every day was fun shit. Jumping out of airplanes, hanging out with your friends, going to the rifle range, going on deployment, and having like meaning and adventure. And the Taliban took that away from him. And I think that that's that he can balance that sentiment of like, hey, I've lost my legs, but I'm still powering forward. I'm still moving forward. And then you say he's a beekeeper, like he launched this career after getting out. He's in the apiary business, and he is a happy father, a happy husband, and has a balanced life because he's looked at the totality of his experience. And this is something I mention whenever I talk about the book, is that the idea of combat trauma or trauma of any kind that you get while you're in the service, it always has a bad rap, right? Because it's like, oh, hey, it's like, talk about like the template or the stereotypical like script that a veteran's supposed to follow. Nice kid from small town goes into the army, gets shot or whatever, comes out and is broken. The end, right? It's like, that's the way it's supposed to go. But by talking with guys like Sergeant J, we realized that trauma, all various kinds of trauma, he saw some bad stuff and experienced some horrible things himself, but that trauma causes the sorts of things that we're used to with trauma, which is like, oh my gosh, like trying to get over it and all the black feelings that come with it. But they also caused him growth, right? Like that trauma was just part of his life, and it brought him to where he is now. And he has just done a remarkable job of balancing balancing what it means to have life experience. And it's not a negative or a positive, it's just life. And he moves with it. And we follow him through the book as we see him develop as a soldier and as a veteran, and then as a stalwart rock for this Group Bravo company. Anyway, I think his story is pretty cool and pretty accessible.
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, you're right. And I learned about beekeeping too. I learned a lot about bees that I didn't know. So, there you have it. It is a big time bonus. Overall, what do you hope? Are you hoping that maybe this book will spark more of these group meetings? Like, what's your ultimate? I know you wanted to tell their stories and everything, but do you have a kind of an ultimate hope of what you want people to get out of this Bravo company?
As I was writing it, I was like, I was consciously trying to put together a book that was accessible and inclusive in a way that it's an odd thing to talk about inclusivity when talking about the United States infantry in 2009, right? Like, it's an objectively not very inclusive place. Like, women weren't allowed. This was, but because of the way that I try to tell their stories, I think that if you've been in the service, if you've been in combat or in a combat zone, I think that this book will help translate that experience in ways that maybe you have not had the way that we don't often have language for. We know we've gone through something, but how do I wrestle with this? And what is it? Other people have gone through this. What is it like? And I want that to be almost like a sort of a handbook of kinds, right? To like help people get through it. And I also want it to be a handbook for civilians, for spouses, for moms and dads who maybe have never served a day in their lives, but they know somebody who's in. And I want them to be able to pick that up and read it and say, oh man, this is definitely written in an infantryman's language. Like there's some potty talk in there, right? Like, but that's the way the infantrymen talk. But it's also, I feel like I wanted to make the feelings, the experiences accessible for anybody. Anyway, I want the book to be an accessible work.
You did. You definitely succeeded at that. You tell this, so I'm already invested in I'm calling them characters, but these are real people, but you tell each of their stories so well. And you say, it's not, it was the infantry wasn't as inclusive or whatever back then, but you still also really got across how very, very different the backgrounds of each of these guys were. One of these guys, super Christian, like kind of felt like he was doing the Lord's work by joining the military to take over and
Right.
spread the word. Another guy from from right outside DC, another guy from the boonies of, you just really, and then yet they come together and they mesh and they become truly a brotherhood that is so tight, despite how different like it almost sounds cliche, but that is how it was a lot of times. Like,
Yeah,
you
and that
really,
is, I mean, that is how it is, right? Like
yeah,
you are thrown together, and I mean,
yep.
what a random grouping, like
Oh yeah,
you go through your boot camp series at this particular time, and then you're shot out into this army, and like you join up with somebody, and now you have a new best friend, and
yeah,
they gel in this way, right? And there is, I mean, there is a sort of a testament to that, the way that the crucible of the military can sort of can I don't know, like bring people together and bond them together. And I hope that I hope that can carry forward into talking about the issues with diversity, inclusion, and difference that we have right now in the military, and what it means to try to bring people together, and issues of combat trauma that these soldiers face in 2009. I mean, even though it is not at all a book about it, and doesn't include it because it's there, because it wasn't something to talk about, does this maybe can help people unpack issues with other kinds of trauma, whether it's, I mean, right now there's serious issues with like military sexual trauma, and I hope that in some way this book can speak to that in a roundabout way, but who knows?
Well, wonderfully written so far. I'm going to continue reading it and going to finish it. Bravo Company, an Afghanistan deployment and its aftermath. It really, so far. And side note, my favorite anecdote in it so far, you're like, if you're military or not, there is great toilet humor in it because it just has to be. It's the military. But the gentleman who takes a ricochet shot to his junk, but he's all right. They wrap it up like, I think he said, like a pig in a blanket. And then
like a pig in a blanket.
He's extremely excited when he gets to announce a few days later to the rest of his buddies that he got an erection. He's like, thank God, I'm all right. I'm all right. So
what a glorious moment that must have been. I mean, come on.
I know. What a truly glorious moment that must have been. But you paint such a perfect picture of that world. Because even I wasn't infantry. I'm not. And I'm still sitting there reading it going like, oh, okay, I get it. So really beautifully written. Ben Kesling, where can people can find the book?
It on November 1st, Bravo Company, published by Abrams Press, comes out. You can pre-order it now online or at your local bookstore, and it should be at just about any bookstore you go to on November 1st.
Yes, and you can follow him on Twitter at B Kesling, just one S, Kesling.
Thank you. Good clarification.
Absolutely. Some people go double S, and I thought that's a mistake. Is there anything else that you want to put out there? Anything else that you want to say, or?
No, I'm also on Instagram at ben.kesling. And the last thing is, hey, hope this book has people reach out to their friends, reach out to your buddies and reach out to each other, like we're in this shit together, and it's up to us to be there for each other.
Well,
so
quick last question for you then. Do you still keep in touch with your Marine buddies?
I keep in touch with some. I just talked with one of my.
Are you walking the talk? Or are you keeping in touch with your buddies? I'm putting you on the spot.
It's really like I had a call from one of my Marines who I picked. He was jumped in from boot camp right at the end of my time when I was a platoon commander, and he called me up, and he was having some troubles, and we connected him with folks and got him set up with some help in the transition process. And it's something I can never do well. None of us ever do it really well, but we can try, and I can always try more. That's in the book too, man. Like everybody, we all know that we can do more no matter how much we do. And yeah, I'm trying, Kate, but
me too. After this, let's each text one of our buddies. We'll tell them hello.
All right, deal.
All right, sweet. Ben Kesling, Bravo Company, an Afghanistan deployment and its aftermath. Go get it.
Let's move on to some save rounds and alibis. Nick, we'll start with you.
Save round, just getting geared up for Halloween today. bring the little one out. Like I said, I'm a night today, so I got to show up. Other than that, just had a good weekend. But
Cons?
I really don't have anything.
Oh, okay.
Nothing. Yeah.
Once again, I just want to let everyone know I'm still fun and I could still party. Had a fun party weekend. I did great.
Proud of you.
Thank you. I did Halloween stuff with my son. I'm doing it again today after work, but I can still have a good time. Okay? Lay off.
I'm doing a little Halloween goofing today, too. I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Go Phillies. That's all I have to say. I really am fucking excited. And one last thing I want to say.
Okay.
Like, all weekend long, in the city of Philadelphia, which has been having some pretty fucking tough times lately, everyone was in such a good... It was like when I went to the Eagles parade and everyone was just so kind and in such a good mood. Like, everyone was just so positive at the Phillies, during the Phillies game, like, in like Center City and everything. And then even though we lost, everyone was still nice afterwards, which is like unheard of. And then at the Eagles tailgate, like, it was just a delight. Like, I've just had... I don't know. You see all the shitty negative and everything's falling apart and blah, blah, blah. I spent my weekend surrounded by like tens of thousands of people, drunk people, no less. And everyone was just good and kind. And it was just like a great reminder.
And I want to remind all young parents, look at Kate. You could see Kate as a nice, sunny disposition because she got out and she was Kate again. Like,
that's right. Yeah.
anytime your mom or your dad constantly, it's going to weigh on you. And that's what you want to do. You want to be the best mom or dad you can. But look at Kate. Every now and then you have to take a step back and do things just for you. And I think that was a good example of that this weekend. For me, Save Rounds, I saw an article this weekend about Russia and some of the things that Ukraine's doing. So I put in the sheet this little drone. They made water drones, essentially, that they're doing, unmanned drones. And it has a Starlink antenna, the Elon Musk internet on it. It has an electric motor. It has mounted cameras so they could see, and they're also night vision goggles, and you could see some of these actions that they actually have. And on the front of this little canoe-looking thing, like a submarine-looking canoe, they have detonators. So all they have to do is, under the cover of darkness, drive these little unmanned things straight into the side of their ships, and they're blowing their ships out of the water because they can't detect them. They have them over this, like they're painted in this non-detectable paint.
Wait, where is this happening, and who is this happening to?
Ukraine.
So Ukraine is using them against Russia, or
yeah, they're using them in the Black Sea. So the Black Sea has a bunch of the ships, and they're having that stoppade where they're stopping the Ukrainian grain from going through and the Turkish grain. So in order to combat that, they're legitimately using combat and just driving these drones that have, as soon as it touches the metal, the detonator goes off and explodes a big old hole in the hole.
Oh shit.
Yeah, pretty fucking crazy. I was like, the ingenuity of people that are getting attacked is always incredible. And that's the difference in Iraq and Afghanistan, because you're defending your home territory. The invaders never have the same level of want to as those that are protecting their home. And you're seeing that with the Ukrainians' will to fight. It's incredible. We'll be back here on Friday. Sound the Retreat.